Take back your soul. This is another transmission from Mahadeva here at thunderwizard.com headquarters, where you find the world's only unified spiritual energy system at thunderwizard.com. Get ready, because here I come. Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Greetings, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good day, whatever it is for you, wherever you are in this multiverse that we live. Sorry, I gotta turn the light off here. I want to revisit with you the reality of the 9 worlds. Now, I don't know if there are only 9 worlds, but I would like for you to be thinking about the 9 worlds as being something more than a mythological symbol. I have tremendous respect for mythology. As you know me, I get annoyed by things. One of the things that annoys me is it's been people whose first language is not English, but I've gotten a couple of nasty messages from people saying, stop using the word mythology. This is when I think I was talking about Vedic mythology. Stop using the word mythology. This is real, blah, blah, blah. So the word mythology is important because in Western society, the idea of scripture has, what is that? I think I have chocolate on my beard. Well, you guys can enjoy looking at that for a while. What was I saying? So somebody got upset because I used the word mythology when talking about Vedic mythology. But in Western society, the word scripture is associated with the Bible, and the Bible is considered to be God's inerrant word. And so those of us who have come out of that get uncomfortable with that idea of looking at things literally. You know, because the Bible is obviously not even close to literal. So the idea of something mythological actually has more value because it is living in a hologram where something can be actual, literally exist, and also be symbolic, and also be metaphorical, and be both at the same time. And so we live in a multiverse. And for me, the multiverse is becoming more and more real all the time, more and more literal all the time. So I would like for you to take that journey with me. I don't know what your thoughts about all of it are. For me, you know, I'm now out of Christianity for about 35 years. I left Christianity, monotheist, dualist, literal Christianity about 35 years ago. And so it has been very helpful for me to look at things as being symbolic and real at the same time. You know, working with the deities. People ask me, are the deities real or are they symbolic? And I say, yes, they're both. But now I'm starting to rethink some of the things I've believed in, and I'm willing to take a look at them as being literal. So today we're going to be taking a look at the 9 dimensions of the world tree. And in this scenario, what I want to take a look at is the idea that we have multiple dimensions that are interwoven on top of our current dimension. Does that make sense? So instead of the two-dimensional 9-world symbol that I've been using, which I still like because it works with the 9 directions, I'd like to be thinking about using the dimensions as being interwoven in on top of each other. And so taking a look at the beings that live in them. So let's look at this again. Oops, not this one. Well, this one I picked because the worlds look like they're sort of stacked on top of each other. So I'd like for you to think about that for a moment. That these 9 worlds are stacked on top of and inside of each other. You know, they're interwoven like that, as opposed to being spaced out, you know, like this, one over here, one over here, one over here. And I'm thinking differently about everything now. You know, I'm thinking differently about ghosts, demons, other mythical creatures like trolls, dwarves, werewolves, elves, obviously, and the gods. Because the idea of living in a world where we're no longer separated by these dimensions, that these dimensions now have interlocking, interwoven pathways. And the idea of literally, physically experiencing gods, elves, dwarves, and if you're unlucky enough, you know, trolls and demons. I have experienced demons when I did exorcisms years ago, and I don't think about them now. But let's take a look at this map here, and then let's do some thinking about this. Oops, not this one. This one. This isn't really a map, but if you can imagine all of these sort of interwoven on top of each other. And this person, whoever put this map together of the 9 worlds of Yggdrasil, it's an interesting concept. And so I like that there are triangles, because what I have learned from physical experience doing the Maoshan spirit fighting is that in order to achieve the vibrational state to become a Dr. Manhattan, one of the things that you are going to learn how to do, also to open up the lightning center of the heart, is to learn the interplay between spheres and triangles. I experienced this. I learned this personally. I know from my physical experience. I can prove it. I'm one of those people that, you know, ideas mean nothing to me if I can't do anything with them. I have to take that knowledge and do something with it. So in terms of energy work, the idea of spheres and triangles means nothing unless I can have energy and then be able to manipulate that energy, experience it, or to work with the spheres and the triangles in order to actually shift into other dimensions. If I can't do that, it's meaningless to me. So I'm sharing with you from my personal experience. Now, as it so happens, as I'm doing this, we've got this thing called synchronicity, which lines up, and I'm starting to find out that this is actually really important in terms of physics in terms of all kinds of other things. So when I'm here doing these sets, I'm playing around with spheres and triangles, and I'm getting all kinds of happy, intense energy feelings. I did all kinds of crazy things. I had all kinds of crazy experiences when I was seriously training. But now I'm finding, from a physics perspective, this actually means something. So I like these triangles. I like these triangles here. And they're interlocked. And I like that this person has little spheres on the end of them. I have no idea if they knew what they were doing or not. Probably not. But they've got them grouped into 3 sets of 3 worlds. So let's play around with that. So this one says on the right, the realm of Midgard. You can see there on the right corner there. And then at the top they have, what is that? Manaheim. And then Jotunheim. And then some other word for dwarf home that I've never seen before. So the world of Middle Earth, right? Is that what I'm looking at here? I can't see because the letters are too small. Let me blow it up. I'm going to blow it up for myself here, not for you. So, yeah, the home of men, yeah, Middle Earth. And then Jotunheim, the home of the giants. And then Nidavellir, which is another word for the home of the dwarves. I agree with that. Middle Earth, where we exist, I would say obviously these don't completely connect with Midgard, because Midgard is its own world. So this person's getting a little bit confused, but I like the idea that this person is saying that these 3 worlds are connected to human beings. So I like that idea. What are the other 2? So the other one, the realm of Asgard. So in terms of the celestial deities, they've got Asgard up at the top, and Elfhome and Vanahome, the home of the Vanir. So those would be the deities. I'm starting to rethink the home of the elves, what the elves are. I'm starting to rethink that. And then they've got the realm of Utgard, which means outer world, the outer yard. And there they have Niflheim, Helheim, and Muspelheim. So I don't hate those categories. I think this person's making things up. That's okay. I make a lot of things up. I'm not sure I completely agree, but I kind of like it. But what I really like about it is this idea that these worlds are intersected. And this is, I think, a philosophy that is important for us, to understand that these worlds are intersected, which means that we are not isolated. We are not isolated, and what happens in our world is not isolated to our world. And it's time for human beings to grow up. And in all seriousness, think about it. Human beings have been on the planet. Modern human beings have been on the planet for 150,000 years. So, we're still, we're just barely conscious. So human beings have been around for 150,000 years, and other pre-human bipedal hominids were around for hundreds of thousands of years before human beings showed up. Like the what's the other cavemen? Why am I not remembering those words? I went surfing today, so I'm kind of tired. Neanderthals. Neanderthals were around for hundreds of thousands of years. I think at least 400,000 years they were around. We've only been around for 150, and of those 150, we've only been civilized for a few thousand, if our history is correct. So we're basically still animals. So we really need to grow up. We, especially in the last 2,000 years, have come up with this philosophy that we are isolated from everything, and that we as individuals are isolated as well. And one of the, whenever you see somebody who ends up becoming addicted to alcohol or drugs, and there's they have a come to Jesus meeting, and all of the their friends and relatives have an intervention and sit them down, one of the things they always say is, "I'm not hurting anybody else." But the truth is that we are interconnected with everything. Everything. So what we do, no pressure, everything that we do vibrates and has a connection to everything else. So we have a responsibility to first and foremost live to our highest health. So if you're listening to me and you like to fill your body with garbage, and don't get me wrong, I don't eat perfect food all the time. The reason I have chocolate on my beard is because I just had a cinnamon roll, and I put some dark chocolate in it and some salt and some cinnamon on it. It was really tasty. So I'm not talking about being morally perfect. I'm talking about treating your body like the energy conduit that it is. It is an extremely powerful antenna that will respond to the vibration that you create in it. So if you're one of these, there's no shortage of spiritual people who talk about spirituality all the time, and yet they're smoking all the time, or drinking, or doing drugs, or destroying their physical body trying to run away from their feelings. So you say that doesn't harm anybody. It does. It vibrates out to everything. And I'm thinking about this more and more because, as you know, I'm starting to become very interested in the idea of, the reality. I don't know if you know this, but yesterday there was a congressional hearing where members of the military came before Congress to once again publicly reveal that UFOs are a real thing, and that the military has been experiencing and tracking UFOs and been having contact with these beings. They're finally admitting it. Now there's a dark side to that. It means that if the military is admitting on camera, I watched it live on YouTube, admitting on camera to Congress and to the rest of the world and you, the voting public, that they are saying, yes, UFOs exist, that means that they want you to know. They're not coming clean. It's not like, oh, look, the military is coming clean, and no, they have an agenda. And so that means they need you to know and slowly start to buy into the idea that extraterrestrial beings and civilizations exist. And they're not doing it because next week they're then going to start talking about how we're going to have peaceful relations with our extraterrestrial cousins. It means that the military is getting ready to go to war. And you first have to know who the enemy is. And so first they have to make you feel comfortable with the idea that extraterrestrials exist and that they have highly advanced technologies. Then they're already doing it. I mean, the beginning when they started talking about extraterrestrials back, 3 or 4 years ago, the first thing that they say in the mainstream media is once they go, look, these craft exist, which means that these beings exist, which means we have to protect our airspace. We are in danger. That's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. So they're setting you up to go to war again. But this time, they are setting it up to, they're going to create a false war with seemingly with extraterrestrials, but they're going to do it with reverse engineered spacecraft that they've been working on for 70 years now. For 70 years, the deep state has been manufacturing and creating. So, half the time you can't tell if you're seeing a UFO. You can't tell if you're looking at a human secret military craft, or if you're looking at an actual craft from some extraterrestrial civilization. The good news is there's this thing, you guys should all go look it up. I haven't talked about it publicly yet because I'm just looking into it, but I strongly recommend you go on to Amazon, everybody, and watch this movie. There's a bunch of them. But a lot of it, there's a lot of serious total nonsense out there. But watch this movie, Close Encounters, come on. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And then what I recommend you do is just go on to Google and Google CE5 protocols. You go and Google that in your spare time, so that we can do an end run around the military. Because what the military wants, the reason why aliens have been, the existence of aliens have been hidden from us by the powers that be, mainstream media, and the military, and why every single alien movie that comes out, except for maybe one or two in the past 50 years, every single one of them has been horror. I mean, the first movie, Alien, I mean, that's, it means that you've got, I think you've got deep state military embedded into Hollywood, because what they want is for you to be frightened of aliens, and it's worked. I'm scared of them. And also all of the reports of abductions, where you have people who are forcibly abducted out of their home and they are experimented on. And in some cases, I mean, I can't even say it on YouTube, all kinds of really nasty, horrible stuff. Those are also done by humans who are using, reverse engineered technology that's able to get into your head and put images in your head that aren't real. And even, I got to say it, I could be wrong, but, Whitley Strieber in the 90s had a huge effect on the idea of disclosure of aliens. But he is somebody who claims to have had multiple abduction experiences where he was forcibly abducted and experimented on, his child forcibly abducted and experimented on. But the thing that bugs me about that, it's always bugged me. First, the idea that somehow aliens have to be violent that way and have to abduct you and experiment on you and frighten you and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing that bothers me is that those experiences all start with huge spotlights, giant spotlights, just surrounding wherever the home is, and then and then they're transported onto a ship or something like that. But the idea that these advanced aliens, number one, have to use these bright spotlights, that doesn't make any sense. And then they have to stick really crude, implants in you that fall out or get infected or something like that, that the doctor can go in there and pull out. None of that makes any sense. If they're so advanced, how come they have to use like spiky tools and big giant needles, and why do they have to do that if they're so advanced? Obviously they're not. These are human beings playing around with some highly advanced technology that they're figuring out, and normal, dumb human primate stuff like needles and knives and really badly placed. These people have scars. None of that makes any sense. Why would these highly developed civilizations be so crude? Obviously, there's some kind of mix-up. So all of this stuff that you're hearing from the military, that they're seemingly coming clean about UFOs, they're setting you up. There's a war that they're going to start that's not going to be real. If they get their way, they may even attack with human-created, seemingly alien craft, blowing up cities and things like that. And they're gonna what that's gonna be about is to get the power over you that they've been experimenting with over the past 2 years. Over the past 2 years, they've been creating false emergencies where they get to control where you live and where you go. And they tried, in some places they succeeded, where you have to have a pass that allows you to travel and take planes and buses and things like that, and to get into venues and restaurants. And in some countries, you're fined if you don't take experimental medical procedures. That was a setup for what they're trying to do. So, you really dig deep into it, you find out that that's possibly what was behind the Kennedy assassinations, that they were going to start talking about how to have a peaceful interaction with our extraterrestrial cousins. So obviously you can tell I'm very obsessed about that. So looking back at the map here, I know I'm all over the place tonight. Looking back at the map here, I am starting to think that perhaps the elves might be, or that the elf home might be somewhere in the physical universe, but not on planet Earth. And in order for me to gel my understanding and experience of spirituality, is that these beings are not just physical beings that have evolved for millions, perhaps billions of years on other planets. That underneath all of it is the soul. So it is my belief now that the soul incarnates in potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of different planets. And that's not even taking into consideration the planets that have consciousness that is behind us. There's got to be other planets that are, behind us in terms of evolution. So there might be cavemen on other planets, or, cave birds or cave insects or whatever. Whatever kind of body consciousness evolves on that planet. And so we get to choose to live in multiple possible places to live. And then on top of that, we start to think about the dimensions where you have beings that have their own world that are right on top of ours. We've talked about Bigfoot before. I've had an experience with Bigfoot. And I'm now starting to believe that many of the other mythological beings, some of the more recent ones like Mothman and werewolves and things like that, these are beings of other dimensions that live right on top of ours. So imagine that it's not this neatly spaced out. Here's a dimension over here and here's a dimension over here. They're intertwined and stacked on top of each other. And so what that means is that if we continue to allow the deep state elite to do what they're doing, the continuous pollution of our planet, the continuous experimentation with toxic chemicals, radioactive chemicals, the pharmaceuticals that change your DNA. The more that we mess around with that stuff, the effects of that don't just affect us. They affect all of the other dimensions that are intertwined with ours. And especially when it comes to weapons, weapons of mass destruction like nuclear weapons. When you start blowing up bombs like that, you're not just blowing up holes in our world, like, oh, we're not harming anybody else. We're blowing up holes in other worlds because their dimensions are intertwined with ours. And so we have to have more responsibility for ourselves. So that's the negative part of it. And it is my firm belief that we are at the crossroads. It's not coming, it's here. And the crossroads is very simple. We either become conscious of this, that we are beings that share space with other dimensions where other conscious beings live, and that we have a responsibility to treat not only our home, the earth, but by doing that, we also have a responsibility to every other world and dimension that exists. And just like when we get infected with a virus or a bacteria, we go and we'll take antibiotics to get rid of that. We'll take medicine to kill that bug within us. If we turn into that bug, if we turn into that infectious virus for the rest of these other dimensions, what are they going to do? They're not going to have any other choice but to eradicate that threat. I'm not speaking for anybody, I don't know, but we're at that juncture now where what's happening is it the Zuni? The Zuni people say that there is people on the earth that they call the dark force people. What they mean is that they mean the psychopathic elites, whom I can't mention because I'll get my channel shut down. The psychopathic elites whose only plan is to completely control and dominate you. And if they have their way, it is my belief that they have every intention of changing human DNA so that they can create a race of slaves. And this coming false war with alien ET, this false ET war that they're going to propagate, has nothing to do with extraterrestrials. It has everything to do with what is the most powerful way to induce fear and control the whole world. There is nothing more frightening than that. The whole world will have to come together in their minds. The whole world will have to come together if we point out, oh, look at that. There's aliens. They're attacking. They're blowing up Paris. And so we have to come together, and then now there's going to be one world government, and there's going to be, who knows, one person will stand up and make proclamations where you can't go, you can't leave your home, you have to get this medicine, you have to eat this kind of food, and then it's going to be the Great Reset where you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. We're at that juncture. There are people that are that psychopathic that have every intention to take over everything. And I believe that the answer to that might be in connecting with the beings that have been here longer than us, who are already here, who are they're part of our dimension, and it is my belief also that perhaps each solar system is a dimension in and of itself. So there might be dimensional properties that are different in other solar systems. And anyway, I could go on and on and on about that. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But I want you to start thinking about what would life be like if we were able to get to the place where instead of thinking of elves as being these spiritual beings, dwarves being these spiritual beings, that these are actual physical entities that we can see, communicate with, and interact with. But in order for that to happen, there needs to be a shift in our energy so that we can shift into different dimensions. There was one experience of somebody who claims to have experienced communicating with an ET around other people, and there were other people there. And based on that anecdotal evidence, which of course isn't proof, but based on that, the stories of the people were all the same, in that this being was communicating with one woman. And when she entered into communication, verbal communication with this being, according to the people around her, she disappeared. Like she was right there, and then she disappeared. And then a few minutes later, she reappeared. According to her, she was standing next to everybody while she was verbally communicating with this extraterrestrial. So having experienced those kinds of things before, because of this, by the way, because of doing this Maoshan practice, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because when your vibration goes up to another level, if somebody, a human, is not at that level, it's going to look like that other person has disappeared. But they've simply shifted to another level. And I am now starting to think more literally about the stories of the Taoist masters. Now, it's not just Taoists that say this, but and just even in the the biblical version, there's Enoch, who was lifted up, who left the world, and I believe that comes from a much older Mediterranean mythology that the Abrahamists hijacked. But the Taoists say that some sects of Taoists say that when you get to a certain level, you go into a cave and you meditate, and you get into a state of samadhi where you go into deep meditation and you stay there, and your apprentice will come by and sweep off all of the bugs and the dust so that you can stay in that state of meditation. And then one day they show up and there's nothing there. There's just a pile of clothes and hair and fingernails, because that person has moved up to the next level and has disappeared. I'm starting to think that's a real thing. I'm also starting to think that, what I heard about the Mao Shan masters, and I don't have that knowledge, that the specific knowledge that they had, the techniques that they had, I'm not privy to, but they had meditative techniques that they did that they would die for 30 days, and then you look in the coffin and they're gone. You dig them up, look in the coffin, they're not there. But you see them walking around, walking through walls and doing those kinds of things. And the idea of becoming a perfected immortal in the Taoist tradition means that you do these practices, you do these meditations, you do this energy work, you do the negong, the internal work, until your body shifts, and then you become what they call a god. But what that really means is that you have shifted to the next level. So it takes on a whole different dimension. And one of the things that's been different about Taoism than, say, East Indian philosophy is that Vedic practices are about Kundalini. And when you get to, the crown chakra and then all the way back down, then you have, your Kundalini is fully awakened. But that doesn't necessarily turn you into a high vibrational being. But the Taoists were, they wanted to leave, to shift out of this dimension. And I, for the longest time, wasn't sure if I believed it or not. But I'm starting to think maybe that is a reality. And so as human beings, it is our turn now. That these other entities have this ability. These living beings, they have a body. They're physical beings that live in their specific dimension, but they have evolved to such a level that they can shift, or they're permanently shifted into a higher dimensional plane. And they can shift in and out of our dimension, but part of that has to do with our perception. Another experience, same kind of thing. Somebody was filled with fear. Those of you who are fear mongers, they were doing the CE5 protocols. And I was just listening to the story where the guy who was afraid and didn't know whether these were good aliens or bad aliens, while everybody else there had an experience where they saw a manifestation around him and he didn't see anything. They were like, you don't hear that? It's like, hear what? I don't hear anything. It's because that fear brought him down into a lower vibration and he wasn't even able to experience it. Whereas the other people whose minds were open and weren't afraid, they were able to see it and experience it. So this is something that I'm working on for myself as well. I'm doing a lot. I'm doing some experimentations and some practices, and I'm not there yet where I can completely get rid of all of my doubt and fear. But I'm working on it. So I believe that what was called the alpha bloat. I'm sure I've shared this numerous times, but I'm going to share it again with a different twist on it. So during the Christian conversion period, where Christians were going into, I don't know if it was Norway or Sweden, I can't remember which one. They were going into somewhere in Scandinavia to the people that hadn't converted to Christianity yet. And so these Christian monks and these Christian priests would go in and they were converting people. And they were traveling through during the time of the Alpha Bloat, the elf ritual. And they got to, back then, when travelers came through, came onto your land, your farm, you let them in. That was just, that's just what you did. And especially in pre-Christian Germanic, our culture, it was mandatory. Like, you didn't know if the gods were coming to visit. So If somebody knocked on your door and wanted shelter and food, you had to give it to them. That was like a spiritual commandment. You had to do it. So these Christians were traveling around, and it was the time of the alpha bloat, and it was bad weather, and they came onto somebody's land, and they were coming on there, getting ready to go and knock on the door and say, hey, can we sleep in your barn for the night, and can you give us some food? And as they were entering the land, the landowner came at them with pitchforks, chasing them off the land, saying, get the hell out of here, stay off of my land. And it was just so out of character. And somebody explained to them that this is the alpha bloat, which means that during the time of the alpha bloat, the elves actually physically come to visit. And if you have somebody that's an unbeliever, it is incredibly, like, it's a curse. It's incredibly bad luck, and you do not want the curse of the elves. And so we see the elves through the understanding of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but there was a fierce, tremendous respect for them. That their level of energy, whatever that was so sacred to them that you weren't allowed to come on, a Christian was not allowed on a pagan's home if they were worshiping the elves, because your disbelief as a Christian, because Christians looked down on that. They made fun of it. You know, that's why we see elves as little people. They're not little people. They've never been little people. Little people with pointy hats and pointy shoes that make cookies. That's never been what elves were. Elves were, you know, like Dr. Manhattan here. They were looked upon as these incredibly powerful beings. And if you remember the 9-world rune reading I did a while back in the Northwest, the realm of the elves, I was asking in the rune reading, tell me about the alien gray species. You know, what are they all about? What are their intentions towards us? And in the Northwest was Uruj, power. So the elves were seen as incredibly powerful beings, and if you did not have a respectful mind towards their existence, you know, you wouldn't be allowed on the land where they were worshiping the elves. So I'm starting to think about all this in a completely different way, that there were real experiences that people were having, and our 2,000 years of believing in hell and sin and damnation and God, I mean, the whole idea that God, your creator, has to reject you. You know, this isolation. We're isolated from each other. We judge each other. We're filled with fear. We're filled with anger. We go to war over ideas. We go to war over technology that is completely, totally out of date and has no function except to, you know, gasoline. I mean, you know, gasoline, the only function it has is to make money off of you. There are so many other technologies we can be using besides that. Anyway, I'm starting to babble now, but I didn't really have a whole lot to say. I just wanted to express some thoughts and introduce some ideas and some things for you to think about. That what would it be like to live in a world where these beings were real? They weren't mythological. They were beings that you could see and experience and interact with based on your mental, meaning your mind, the vibrational state of your mind, your consciousness level. With that, I'll open it up to questions. This is a question and answer. I prefer questions where you write the word question in all caps and then just write your question, or share an honest feeling. Those are the two things I'm looking for. And again, I may want to get to the root of your question, which may mean I may do or say something that might push your buttons. That's just what I do. Don't take it personally. Let's take a look and see who we got here today. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. You can go take a look at his chat entry there. He is one of my Vedic astrologers, and if you go to his website, vincent.thunderwizard.com, you can get a reading from him. He's also giving astrology readings on sale. You can go check that out, and he's got a bunch of other stuff that he does as well. And then you have Thundra, and you can check her out. She's also one of my astrologers. Thundra.thunderwizard.com, Thundra.thunderwizard.com. She has a bunch of other stuff as well. Go check both of them out. Agent of the Universe question. Do you believe that the people who wrote the Bible had some form of autism? No. I see what you're saying, though, because autistic people tend to take things very literally. No, I honestly don't know. I don't think so. No, I think what it was is people who wanted to control others. It was a way of, it was propaganda. It was a way of anyway. I won't get into it. I've talked about it before in my other books. But short answer, no. I don't think that they were autistic. But I understand your question. All right. Agent of the Universe question. Will the extraterrestrials allow Russia to use nukes? Or do you believe they will prevent nuclear winter? Well, based on, again, reports from people in the military, numerous reports of people in the military, they've said that UFOs have shown up above the nuclear silos, and they were able to electronically take over the nukes. Like they were able to turn them all on like they were about to launch, and then they were also able to completely turn them off and shut off all the power to the nuclear installations. And the message seemed to be pretty clear, which was that, hey, we have complete control over, we know what these things are, we have complete control over them. So if the idea that we live in a multi-dimensional universe, where if we blow up nuclear weapons, that's going to blow holes into other dimensions that are sitting right on top of us. Conventional weapons isn't the same because they're conventional, so we're just messing up our own dimension. But nuclear weapons, that's messing around with things at the micro level, at the atomic level, which the fabric of the intertwining universes. So I don't think that they would allow us to destroy them. The real question is whether or not, if we get to that point, whether or not they're going to step in. That's the real question. And according to the Hopis, they have, their prophecies are not, they're not so positive. Their prophecies, whatever shaman was that had his vision, he was seeing a particular timeline. Bear in mind that timelines can change. So maybe we can change this timeline, but according to that vision of that timeline, according to them, nuclear war happens, and then what ends up happening is that somebody, we don't know, I haven't heard exactly who, it sounds like extraterrestrials, but they fall out of the sky and are able to completely dismantle all of the technology, and then the dark force people, the elites, are taken out in some really nasty ways. So, does it come to that? That's the question. So this is why I feel really motivated to step up and do whatever I can to step up my own evolution and to help others. And this is why, when I first started practicing the Mao Shan, the 5 element stuff, my feeling is that this wasn't a human spiritual technology. And that people who have done it, I was just talking to somebody yesterday who was saying the same thing. He was doing the 5 element Mao Shan stuff, and he says this stuff is so powerful that I had to put it down. It was flipping me out, and I felt like my reality was changing. And it's like it was. You're shifting into other dimensions. I'm starting to think that this practice might be an extraterrestrial download. I don't know that for a fact. I'm not married to that. It's just, compared to, say, like Kundalini yoga, even mantra meditation, which, as you know, I do on a daily basis, that's still very human, and it's very user friendly. This stuff feels like it's coming from somewhere else. And the power is immediate, and the transformation is immediate, and it can be very challenging, because you have to give up all of your emotions. The same thing that we do up here in the Warrior 90-Day Challenge at thunderwizard.com. You go there, you can subscribe there to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. Let's see, we're coming towards the end of we're still in the middle of the month. Anyway. So I don't know. I don't know, but I would imagine that they won't let us do that, because if we do, it'll destroy their world as well. And obviously, I think also they care about us, and they don't want us to destroy ourselves. At the very least, they don't want us to destroy this planet. This planet is an amazing place. It's Disneyland. It's just, I feel sad for people who don't leave the city and go out into the beautiful nature that our planet offers. I've been in so many different types of natural settings, all over the world, that it's Disneyland. And if I was an extraterrestrial and I were able to come and travel here and enjoy all of the different kinds of nature, I wouldn't want that destroyed either, and I wouldn't let somebody destroy that. So I'd like to believe that they wouldn't, but that's just my guess. Let's see, what else? All right, so Leopard Tree Bengals, I'm really interested more in your question. It's great that you have opinions, but I have to scroll through those, and it ends up just being noise that I have to scroll through. So I'd prefer it if you could limit this to your questions and your honest feelings. Let's see, what else? Agent of the Universe question. I have the feeling when I continue to practice the yin-yang hands. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, that is one of the moving mudras that you can practice here, the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. It's actually the basis for all of the Mao Shan, and it is the basics of creation. When you're doing that practice, you are actually creating electromagnetic fields that, of course, do all kinds of things to you, but you're also creating little universes with it. So the thing about the yin-yang hands, one of the things about the yin-yang hands, is that when you do that practice and you focus your intent, you literally can create it. So that's what he's talking about here. He says, I have the feeling when I continue to practice the yin-yang hands that I'm a puppet on a string, like I'm being assisted by spiritual forces. Has this happened to you? Yes. The yin-yang hands is also like the bat signal for the Mao Shan ascended masters, who now I'm starting to wonder who those masters are. But it brings them literally in the room with you, and when you are focused on the practice, you might find your body slightly shifting. You might get impressions, you might get feelings, you might get thoughts, you might But one of the things they want to do is they want to help shift your practice, because it's a technique, and the more subtle you are, the more that, just a slight shift in something will all of a sudden open up all kinds of energy from within your body. And the whole point of that is to open up the heart center, which is an energy center in your heart, not just the heart center, but the lightning center that surrounds the heart. That's usually a dormant energy that is self-contained, and it's only there to protect the soul from the harshness of our four-dimensional reality. But when you're able to release that lightning and it goes through your whole body, then you start to shift on higher levels, and they're here to help us do that, the ascended masters. So when you do the yin yang hands, you're doing the bat signal to them, and they come and they help. And so that's why you should treat these practices with tremendous reverence. It's okay, you can be a messed up, imperfect human, but your attitude should be one of reverence. And the more reverence you have for the practice, the more they will be inclined to come and teach you. So one of the experiences is what you've just talked about, which is you can just slightly feel like, almost like, it doesn't, it's not like you look around and somebody's there. You're not going to feel a hand on your shoulder or anything like that. But you'll feel your energy sort of shift and move just slightly, and you go, oh, and you'll feel it. And then other things might happen, like you might have, like I said, you might have some mental impressions, and you might, well, not might, it's guaranteed you'll have some very intense dreams, especially when you're doing the 5-element practice. That's the really powerful stuff. So yes, that has happened to me quite often, and continues to happen. What else? Simon, question. I had a vivid dream in a nap. I saw purple clouds form into lion's face. It said a sentence to me. I woke up but forgot what was said. Any advice on how to reconnect to or recall this? I've had those experiences as well. I mean, if you can't remember, you can't remember. But your unconscious remembers. So don't worry. It got in there. So whatever it is, it'll resurface. But you, in the meantime, can continue to do your spiritual work and your spiritual practices. I recommend, if you're new to my channel, if you haven't done anything, you can do the Huul breath, Huul breath. You can type that in, probably in any search engine, and it'll come up, and you'll see my videos, and just do that practice. That's just one of many practices you can do. And that you can have the intention of, please help me to remember what was said. And it's there, it'll come back. Okay, Lushka, question. Hey Mahadeva, do you have a PayPal account we can donate to? Yeah, but I don't like the idea of donations, but I much prefer that I'm able to give you something in exchange for that. You can donate here onto this channel. I mean, this YouTube channel has, you can donate, people do that all the time. You leave a tip or you donate. So there should be a button right in front of you to click on the PayPal thing to donate. But go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe. That's really what I would prefer. I mean, I'm happy to take your money for nothing. I'm happy to do that. I guess I'm not nothing. I'm doing these videos for free. But what I'd like is I'd like to get, have a few hundred subscribers here. That's what I'd like to see. And you get something in exchange for that. So anyway, I appreciate the gesture. You can donate. There's some button here on YouTube that you can click that you can donate. But you can subscribe as well. That's another way to support the work. Thank you for that. What else? So, Shannon, welcome to the channel. The way I like to do things, I like question and answers, because if dropping your thoughts and your opinions, as wonderful as they are, I tend to have to scroll through them just to get to the questions. That's just the way I like to do things. So, if you have a question, please feel free to put it like you see here. People write the word question. Or if you have an honest feeling, you can share your feelings as well. Feelings are feelings. I feel this. I'm happy. I'm sad. I'm lonely. I'm excited. I'm depressed. I'm angry. If I say something that bothers you, you can say, I am angry with you. I will listen to that. I may not have anything to do with me, but I'll listen to it. So I want to hear your questions, and I want to hear your feelings. What else? So same with you. I am Susie. If you have a question, please write the word question, and because I don't want to miss it. That's the idea, because you can see why. I'll miss it if I don't see that. So you're obviously new to the channel. Welcome. I encourage you to watch more of my videos so you can see what it is that I teach. The short answer is, do we live in a ship? You mean like in that Star Trek one where people lived inside of a ship and they thought it was a planet, but it was a ship traveling through space? Well, we live on a planet that is hurtling through space. If you want to call that a ship, you can. Do I think that we live in a constructed ship? No, I don't think that. But who knows? I've been wrong about other things. What else? All right, Jedi Black Knight. Question. I've had a dream at least twice where my left eye was struggling hard to see while the right eye was fine. Any possible meaning you can think of? Yes. You're too intellectual. You're too trapped in your intellect. You're black and white thinking. So Jedi Black Knight, I know you've been on my channel for quite some time, so you know that the left brain focuses with the right hand, which is the male, the intellectual, the scientific brain, but it's the intellect. So the intellect functions to help us function in 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional space-time. In fact, that's probably the reason why everybody's right-handed. Because as we were evolving, we spent hundreds of thousands of years, by the way, throwing spears around. So we developed this left brain, right hand connection, and why we're right-handed. Probably it had a lot to do with why we have such a limited experience of space-time. Because we're functioning mostly from our left brain. Excuse me. But we ran around throwing spears with our right hand, which was we had to see things and judge distance and all that stuff that the left brain is really good for. But it got us out of our emotional, intuitive right brain. So your left eye was struggling to see while your right eye was fine. So actually, I think I'm saying this backwards. So it means, whatever it means that there needs to be a balance. So you've had this dream lately. I know you've been doing the Maoshan 5-element practice. It might be, I might have had it backwards. It might be the other way around. It might be that your intuitive side is really kicking in. It could be that your intellect, this feels right, that your intellect is struggling to understand something it's never meant to understand. So your intellect is never going to understand the energies that are associated with the Maoshan. It's never going to figure that out. So it's trying to figure it out. But the good thing is your intuitive side is winning over, the part of you that connects to everything, more, quote, spiritual or energetic. So that's a good sign. So that's something to meditate on. Meditate on, allowing your intellectual, your left brain to serve the right brain in this capacity. Obviously, when we're driving our car or when we're at work, we need to be left-brained. We need to know what 2 + 2 is. But when we're doing our spiritual practice, we need our intellect to serve our spiritual. So, anyway, that's something to meditate on. Those are some of my thoughts. I had it backwards. Sorry. So your left eye was struggling hard to see while your right eye was fine. So I think that's your intellect trying to figure things out, but it's okay. It's not supposed to. Because your intellect is, again, for interacting with this physical universe. Your right brain is more about connecting to everything. Flux Pavilion, question. I keep having a recurring dream of a time in high school where I failed a big test. Any advice? No. I would need to talk to you more to have an idea of what that was about. But the more that you meditate on it, your unconscious will help you resolve it. Somebody's name is O. Question. What is the power or uses of the meditations that are coming? Are you practicing the meditations that have already come? Have you mastered them yet? Because that's a question somebody asks, if they've mastered everything. I haven't mastered all of the meditations and the practices that I've taught. So I guess I'm saying that doesn't help you. That the grass is always greener mentality doesn't help you accomplish what you want. This is incredibly important. When you work with the Ascended Masters, and what I want people to do is I want to give you the ability so that you don't have to listen to me or anybody else. You have a direct communication with higher, more evolved spiritual beings. And you can't see them or connect to them when you have that kind of a mindset. What is coming? What's going to be that thing? I want to know about that thing that hasn't come here yet. I want the better, the happier, the shinier, the faster, because that's kind of the feeling behind your question. It shows a lack of appreciation of what you do have. So that's my answer to you. My other answer to you is when they come, you say the meditations that are coming. When they come, you can practice them and then you'll know. Right now, try to understand what you have and experience and appreciate and master what you have, and then you'll be ready for what comes. And again, that's another question. Like if you were to train with a traditional master, traditional Chinese master, and you were to ask that kind of a question, they would just simply turn around and walk away from you. They wouldn't even talk to you. Not because they're being mean, it's just because that's just not how it works. You show up at the studio and you say, Sifu, I want to learn Kung Fu. They say, oh, good, go stand in the corner on one leg. And you don't even get to ask how long. They tell you to go do something, you go do it. You don't go, okay, why am I doing that? If you ask that, they'd say, I'm sorry, this is the wrong school for you. There's the door, thank you. You don't ask those kinds of questions. You don't get ahead of it. And it's because if you try and figure it out, you've already lost it. You have to experience it. Once you've experienced it, you're standing in the corner on one leg, and you've been doing it for 20 minutes, and you're sweating blood, and the teacher is, he's looking at his watch and he's reading the paper, and he doesn't even notice you. He doesn't know that you're falling apart, but you know that if you get out of the posture, you're done. He's going to kick you out. Then something shifts and something happens, and then you learn to tap into something, and all of a sudden you tap into your energy body, and then you're able to do something you couldn't do before. Then you know the answer, and you don't even have to ask the question because you've learned it through experience. So I encourage you, to do the practices that you have, whatever they are. If you haven't subscribed to the practices, do it. And then master those. Then when the new practices come, you won't ask the question. You'll just go, oh, I'm looking forward to whatever this experience is, and you'll go do it, and then you'll learn. And then you won't have to ask the question. Because there are some things that there's no amount, even if I were to tell you the answer to your question, it would be meaningless to you. If you're colorblind and I start explaining to you the difference between teal and green and blue, you're not going to know what the hell I'm talking about. So even if I answer your question, you're not going to know what the hell I'm talking about. So do what you have in front of you. That's a very powerful spiritual practice. And by the way, if you learn how to do that, the Ascended Masters will work with you. On this channel, when I tell you to ask honest questions and to share your feelings, I'm training you to learn how to interact with them. All right, what else? Hi, Susie. Yes, I already answered that question. Thank you for placing it in the question. Franklin, question, what is your opinion on Reiki? So Franklin, welcome to the channel. I don't do well with those kinds of open-ended questions. What do you think of this? What's your opinion on that? I'm not talking about Reiki. I've never talked about Reiki. So you're distracting us from what we are talking about. You're distracting me from what I do talk about. It shows me that you haven't watched my channel. And you don't even know that I have a distance energy healing course. So it's good sometimes just to sit in class and absorb and know what the subject matter is before you ask these questions. Also, you don't know this also, but it's disrespectful to people who practice Reiki because you're asking my opinion. So you're asking me to have a stance. Oh, I like it, I don't like it, it's good, it's bad. You've now already disrespected everybody who practices Reiki. Because I may talk out of my ignorance. If you know my channel, you know I don't have one video about Reiki, not one. So you're asking me to talk about something I don't teach, which means that I'm ignorant of the subject, perhaps. So have respect for Reiki people and don't ask, if you want to find out about Reiki, ask Reiki people. Don't ask me. Don't ask a Reiki person about lightning Qigong if they haven't done it, because they don't have any experience. It's important. This is an important mindset, learning how to have respect for everything. Have an inclusive mindset. So I'm not going to give an opinion on Reiki because I don't practice it. I'm not qualified to have an opinion. Philip Church, question, do you think left-handed people are more likely to have distinct advantages? No, I don't have, no. And I'm not left-handed. So I don't know. I've known some left-handed people though. But no, I don't have that feeling. Question. So it's good to write full sentences that convey full thoughts because you deserve it. Your soul deserves the right to have its question answered. I have no idea what this question is. Do you store the lighting ore? No idea what that means. Jedi Black Knight, follow-up. I also realized that Shukra, Venus in Vedic mythology, pierced his left eye while saving the Asura king Bali from Vishnu's incarnation of Vamana. Ah, there you go. Now, yeah, now you figured it out. I wasn't aware of that detail in Vedic mythology, but there you go. You answered your own question. I was just wondering because I was watching so much, so that is what came to mind. Again, I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, write a full sentence. convey a full thought. Take responsibility for your communication. You deserve. So even that, okay, you've said lightning, typo. I'll now read it. Do you store the lightning ore? What do you mean, do I store the lightning? So to answer your question, you're asking about the lightning qigong. Here's my answer. Do it. Go sign up, go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Lightning Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Do the Lightning Qigong, and then you can tell us whether or not you store the lightning. Because again, how does that knowledge help you? If I just tell you, yes, we store it, no, we don't, if you're not practicing it, how does that knowledge help you? It doesn't. It's just knowledge that sits in your brain and does nothing for you. I would much rather that you get the benefit of the energy, and then whether or not you store it or don't store it, you can figure that out, and then you'll get the benefit of it regardless. And that's really what I'm here. So, this whole channel, all of the talk that I do is really meaningless. The talk is just so that we can come together and identify thoughts and feelings, but the whole point of this channel is to do the practice. The whole point of this channel is so that you can become a Dr. Manhattan. And now that we know that there are, we don't even know how many, there are physical beings, conscious physical beings that live on other planets and other solar systems that have evolved to such a level where they can control their manifestation of themselves. They can walk through walls, appear in front of you, not appear in front of you, walk through walls. Their ships are powered by consciousness. Whatever instrumentation they have, they connect physically, and their consciousness, moves the ship, and they work on this non-locality understanding where the reason why they're able to travel, hundreds of millions of light years isn't because they're going faster than the speed of light. It's because they have such connection to their consciousness that for them, with a snap of a finger, just traveling hundreds of light years is the same as me picking up this cup of tea. And to get to that level, I want us to have that ability. Now that we know, we've been told by science, we've been told by religion, we've been told by philosophy that that's impossible. Yet there are theoretical physicists who say it is possible, but then we look at it the same way we look at mythology. It's like, oh, well, that's an interesting thought. Well, we'll never be able to prove that. That's just, well, mathematically they say that, consciousness is everything. We have that experiment with, that repeated experiment where is light a particle or a wave? It depends on the intent of the observer. That light will respond to your intention as you look at it. That consciousness is even more powerful than the light that comes out of the sun. That there are beings that live in that reality. That's their everyday reality for them. And they've been around for who knows how long. 500,000, 1 million, billions of years more than us. So that's where we're headed. And I want to take that journey, and I want to share with you the techniques that I'm learning and have learned so that you can accomplish that. Bottom line is, I want you to have the experience. You can't have the experience if you don't do the work. So if you want to subscribe, go ahead and subscribe. If you want to do the free stuff, put the time and effort to look on my playlists on my channel and do the free exercises. But get into doing the work, because at some point, if any of this, even if 1/10 of what I'm talking about, supposedly is on its way, comes, even if 1/10 of it, we're going to need to be ready. We're going to need to start learning how to shift so that the human race can work towards being like that. And what an amazing, wonderful, think about it. Living in a universe where there isn't any war, there isn't any competition, except for your own competition with yourself. There's no money. You don't have to work to get money from somebody. You don't have to, all that craziness, because the truth is money doesn't exist anyway. It's just an idea. To live in a reality where, seemingly, perfection, where we don't have to talk to communicate. We're so honest, and we're so, innocent and pure in our motives and in our thinking, which, I'm not at that place. I don't know if you are, but I'm not. But to be at that place of purity where you can share all of your thoughts with whoever's sitting next to you. You don't have to hide anything from anybody. And you've got the power of consciousness. You got this power of energy where you can use your energy to shift. What an amazing universe that would be. We have to do our part. We have to do the work to get there. Okay, what else? Mario Chavez, honest feeling, I was reading the Celestine Prophecy and it reminded me of your videos. Truly grateful. Thank you. I remember that, Celestine Prophecy. Maybe I should read that again. Yeah, I know that. You say, I was catching up on some videos and you said that you would bring some new meditations. There's nothing wrong with your question, but I gave you the best answer that I have, which is you will understand what those meditations are when you do them. Trying to figure it out now. If I haven't shared them yet, it means I'm not ready to share them. So again, trying to get out of where you are. And I don't even know if you're practicing the previous ones. You haven't told me. Are you signed up here? If you're doing this, my hope is that the practices are so engrossing and so intense and so powerful, you don't have time to think about the next one. So I'm not judging you for your question. I am telling you how to best interact with these things. Stay where you are now. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about your neighbor. Don't worry about what's on the other side of the fence. Master what you have. And when the new stuff shows up, you won't have to ask. You'll just experience it. All right, I'm repeating myself. Okay. Oh, I'm tired. I finally got some good surfing in. Been a long time. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much. Anyway, if you have questions for me, you can write questions on any of the YouTube video comment sections. And if I like your question, I'll make a video about it. And that's it for now. Of course, I'll continue sharing with you as I do that. I've given you the stuff that I'm looking into, which is the CE5 protocols. So I would recommend that you Google that, CE5 protocols. And those of you who are doing the 90-day challenge and the Maoshan, trust me, if you use that, when they say do, because one of the protocols is to do meditations to connect to our alien cousins. If you do this stuff, you'll be even more likely to make contact. So, yeah, go there. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you. Mario Chavez threw in a question before I could run out. Can you do a video on the Celestine prophecy? I can. I would need to read it again. It's been a very long time. All right. That's it, guys. Thanks. I'm going to go crash. I will see you guys next time. Take care. Take back your soul. This is another transmission from Mahadeva here at ThunderWizard.com headquarters, where you find the world's only unified spiritual energy system at ThunderWizard.com. Get ready, because here I come.